Hello and welcome to the game 4 between Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov in the 1985 World Chess Championship. Uh, uh, the first three games, Kasparov has a lead of 1.5 to 0.5. Karpov lost the first game. He was playing the black pieces. In the second game, he was playing with the white pieces, and he tried to come back. But after a long fight, Kasparov was able to hold him off. So in this game, Karpov again has the white pieces, and he will try to make a comeback and level the score as soon as possible. Let's see how Karpov fares. D4, D5, C4, E6, Knight C3, Bishop E7, Knight F3, Knight F6. So we have a Queen's Gambit declined. Pretty classical structure, and Karpov will have his chances to win, as well as Kasparov would have his chances as well. Bishop G5, H6, and Bishop takes F6. So the main move here is Bishop H4, which gives rise to a lot of theory with Queen's Gambit decline, Tartakova defense, or say Lasker variation. Karpov chose bishop takes f6 just to avoid a lot of theory, which would give him more chances to win. That was his opening preparation. Bishop takes e3, castles, and queen to c2. Knight a6 and rook to d1. So the idea behind knight a6 was c5, strengthening the c5 square to strike in the center, and that is why rook to d1, so that if d takes c5, then yeah, this queen would be in a pin, and would cause some troubles for black. But c5 anyway. A point to note here is, when you see such kind of structures, one of the parties is going to end up with a isolated queen pawn. That's most likely that happens. Either this goes here or this goes here. Whoever takes the last ends up in an isolated pawn situation. So let's see who ends up with an IQP here. D takes c5, queen a5, c takes d5, and knight takes c5, queen to d2, and rook d8. So you can't really take this pawn. Then knight d4 and e takes d5. Sorry. So as you can see, black is the one who ends up with an IQP here. So an IQP has strength and weaknesses. So the strength is it holds these two vital squares for a knight or a bishop or some piece to just land and provide an outpost for that piece. Obviously, the demerit, the con of this IQP is it's isolated, right? It can be attacked. So in this situation, I think Kasparov made the wrong choice. In this situation, I think this IQP favors white more than black. Why? Because it's going to be attacked, and it's heavily guarded. One of the characteristics of an IQP is it wants to advance. So and a knight is a fantastic blockader, right? So yeah, white has a lot of things going for him. He has control over this e4 square as well. So a knight when lands, he can just take it out, and he has stopped this pawn from pushing, as well as he is putting a lot of pressure on this. In these trade sequence of the four pawns, white is the one who emerges victorious. So bishop to e2 and queen to b6, castles and knight to e4, queen c2, knight takes and queen takes. This bishop does not have a lot of good squares for it to come out, right? Doesn't want to come here. I mean, here it will just be a tall pawn, right? Tall pawn looking at its own pawns and being a chain in the pawn chain. This square is guarded by knight, and yeah. So, but Kasparov plays bishop e6 anyway. But according to the engine, bishop f5 would be a better move. It's a small tactical thing that you can't take the bishop because your queen is pinned, and it also takes away the c2 square. So once the queen dodges, I think the bishop goes to g6, and these bishops are doing a tremendous job. And yeah, this could be problematic for white when this rook comes out, and could launch a queenside attack. However, Kasparov decided to play solid with bishop e6. So with this move, it was mostly clear that Kasparov was not going for a win. Instead, he was going to play solid and just say that, okay, I'm holding this position. How are you going to break it? Moreover, this bishop vacates this square, so this rook would come next. So sensing that, Karpov plays queen to c2 and rook a to c8 and queen to b1, tucking away his queen safely. Rook to c7, planning to double on this file because this is the only play that black can generate now. And rook to d2, rook d to c8, and now knight takes e6 and pawn takes e6. So this was a good knight and this was a bad bishop, but Karpov still went ahead with this trade and made one advantage into a second advantage. He had an active knight versus a bad bishop, but now he says that, okay, we have a opposite colored bishop, but I am going to exploit these light squares around your king, because you have a dark squared bishop and you don't have enough protection around your king. So that's the claim. He immediately goes for it, bishop to g4, attacking this pawn, but this is protected for now. And rook to c4, h3, guarding the bishop. So the thing is, you can't really displace this bishop, right? There is no piece that can challenge this bishop. Yeah, this bishop is useless for now because this pawn is guarded well. The claim is quite clear that black says that, okay, there is you can't really do much with these light square weaknesses, and white really says that, okay, this is my trump and I'm going to exploit them. Queen to c6, tripling on this file, and queen to d3, planning to take the queen out, and maybe queen e2, queen f3, and put some pressure on the light squares. King to h8, just a waiting move. Rook fd1, a5, and b3. So asking this rook a question. This rook attacks the queen, queen to e2, and rook to c3 and queen to e2. Rook to f8 now, and bishop to h5. b5, planning to generate either a4 or b4, and doing something on the queen side. Bishop g6. So if you watch, Karpov is a great maneuver of the pieces, right? He maneuvers his pieces really well. In this game, you are going to see a lot of maneuvering of the pieces and rotating of the pieces, and just having that slight advantage for a long time till the opponent breaks or does some mistake, or yeah, he just gains one advantage into another, and yeah, in the end gains a massive advantage by that way. Yeah. Bishop to d8 and bishop to d3. So b4 securing this rook, and queen to g4. So now the queen has got good access to the good squares. So the bishop see, the bishop was here and the queen was here, but now they have interchanged their diagonals and places, right? So if the queen is in front of the bishop, then only there are some mating attacks. So he has successfully done this maneuvering, while black did nothing but just pushed pawns, and these ultimately don't do anything for the position. Queen to e8, guarding this square, because the queen, if the queen goes, then yeah, this is inevitable. And e4 now. So what's the idea with this e4, right? So if you see, this pawn does a very important role in black's camp. It protects the e4 square. So the plan with e4 is to challenge this pawn, and either it has to move forward, or it has to take, or white will take, making another isolated queen pawn forward for black, giving it another disadvantage. So that's what Karpov's idea is, so that this queen has access to more number of squares to attack this king. Either it can come here or it can go here. So yeah, just trying to create more weaknesses in black's camp, more light square weaknesses in black's camp rather. So e4, bishop to g5, rook to c2, and rook takes and bishop takes, but still this pawn remains. So if this pawn advances, then white simply plays e5 and has access to this very beautiful e4 square. Queen to c6. Somehow black says that a pawn should be here, so that this all important e4 square is under control, and just retreating the queen to e2. So the idea is black has got some pressure on this pawn, so the next black queen would come to c5, sorry, would come to c5, and along with this rook put some pressure here. Maybe even we see a sacrifice, right? So don't forget about this bishop here. It's not doing much now, but once this pawn goes, could wreak havoc on this square. So seeing that, Karpov just plays queen to e2, and by protecting this pawn as well as this square, but Kasparov plays queen to c5 anyway. But the problem is this queen is tied now to guarding this pawn. So Karpov plays rook to f1, so that this queen is free to move now. Kasparov plays queen to c3, e takes d5 and e takes d5. Black had a isolated queen pawn in the middle game where the knight blockaded it. Then it didn't have, because the knight took the bishop, and the f pawn took it back, resulting in a few light square weaknesses. But now again black has a isolated queen pawn. So what it wants to do is advance, really, but will white allow it? Let us see. So bishop to b1, tucking away the bishop safely, and queen to d2, offering a queen trade. Obviously Karpov will decline the offer by queen to e5. If you see, this is the first time in a lot of previous moves that Karpov has played a piece to a dark square. His play has been all white squares, really. Bishop traveled from here to here to here to here to here, and rook went to here, then bishop came here, the queen went from here to here, yeah, and back here. So there have been a lot of light square maneuvering, but this is the first time that he played it to a black square. And then Kasparov plays rook to d8. This is a pretty decisive mistake by Kasparov, giving up this f5 square. His idea was that even if you do this, the king could escape and just and plan to push this pawn down the board. Karpov plays queen f5, threatening a mate here. So so king g8, queen e6 check, again king h8, again queen g6, king g8, repeating once, queen e6, king h8, sorry, bishop to f5. So planning to go for queen g6 and then bishop to e6 while the king is at g8. So queen c3. Black only plans to play in the dark squares and makes way for this pawn to pass. Queen g6, king g8, and bishop e6. King h8. Yeah, repeating once again. Bishop f5 and king g8. And now g3. So the idea behind this move is to have a luft for the king, but a light square luft for the king. Why is this necessary? Because previously there was only the star square luft and the rook couldn't really leave the back rank. So the idea with this is for the king could go here, and then the rook could join the party in mating the king. So yeah, this is called a housekeeping move, by the way. So that the king could be safely tucked here, and if this queen tries to check in from the light squares, then it can be blockaded on f3 by any of the white pieces. And also this pawn shuts down any activity of this black bishop here or here or here. King f8 and king g2. Queen f6, again planning to trade off the queens. Queen h7, queen f7, because you want to blockade this check with the queen. At h4, so yeah, kicking this bishop out. First with g3 he just blockaded all the squares, and then with h4 he asked the bishop, where do you want to go? This bishop does not have too many great squares, right? Bishop d2, and yeah, this was not a great move by Kasparov, because it gave white a lot of good tempo to develop this rook. So rook d1, bishop c3, rook to d3. So yeah, it came to d3 with tempo, so it saves some time, and then now it threatens this f3, rook to f3. It provides a nice shield to the king on this diagonal, as well as there's a skewer here, right? So not fun for black. Rook d6. Kasparov plans to do some literal defense on this rank to counter this rook. Rook f3 anyway, and Kasparov decides to just run. King to e7, queen to h8, just cutting off this rank for the king to go. Yeah, queen to f8 here is not good for black, because after rook to e3, and the king can't go this way because the queen is protected by the king. So king to f7, but then this nice move, bishop to e6. If the king comes to the e8 or e7, then after bishop to d5, the king has to move to this square and the queen falls. So it has to be rook to e6, queen takes, king takes, and this is a clear win for white, right? Being an exchange up in this endgame. So going back, this queen has cut off the back rank for the king. So Kasparov just decides to push and put some pressure on white here. Karpov plays queen to c8, planning to put some pressure from this side of the board, and then rook to f6. Queen to c5 check. The king tries to escape with king to e8 and rook to f4. So the rook was not able to give check here, right? Because this pawn was blockading, holding the square. So the rook decides to move up and plans to check from the e4 square. Kasparov decides to vacate this square for the king, so plays queen to b7 with a check. But yeah, very nice move. Rook to e4 blockades the check and uh, gives a check in return. King to f7, but then queen to c4 check. There's no blockading or anything. I mean, these squares are taken. The square is taken. The square is taken. So yeah, the only move is king to f8 and bishop to h7, so that even this square is taken by the bishop, and then somehow the queen wants to go here and mate. So before we end, let's do a computer analysis here and ask the computer how many blunders, mistakes done by each party here, right? So this is where the game ended. So let's see. All right, let's see. So as you can see, Kasparov, Karpov 3 inaccuracies, Kasparov 4 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 blunders by Karpov, but yeah, same, no mistakes, no blunders. But yeah, if you see, there is 8 average centipawn loss by Karpov and 18 average centipawn loss by Kasparov. So yeah, that really means that this was a positional game, a very Karpov-like game where there was maneuvering of the pieces. There was slight advantage for a long time, and Kasparov kept making small positional strategic mistakes, which in the end snowballed to a decisive advantage for white. Let's see the ticker tape here. Small advantage, and then here it almost equalized, again small advantage. But yeah, nothing real major. This is where yeah, this is where the computer gives Karpov +1 score. That's because opposite colored bishop, but light square weaknesses around the king. Yeah, and yeah, slowly Karpov could take the advantage and uh, score the game. Yeah, the major decisive advantage was when this bishop was played to e6, right? The bishop should have been played to f5 and then tucked away to g6, like we talked, so that these two diagonals would be open for black. So there you have it. Kasparov did take a lead in the first game by stunning Karpov, but now he has come back. It's 1-1. The race to 12.5 is on now again. Yeah, then in the next game, Kasparov is going to have the white pieces. So he will try to get a lead once again. But for now, it's 1-1. And let's see how the next game goes.